Hi. I'm Greg Tananbaum. I co-chaired the Altmetrics Data Quality Code of Conduct, Working Group C. We have a huge feud with Working Group A. It's awkward to be on the same stage, but we'll put those aside. So there's a lot of people, there are 100 people or so in this room talking about standards or listening to standards, which is fascinating to me. My wife has no idea what I do, and so when I say things like I'm going to Canada to talk about Altmetrics standards, Canada resonates, but that's about it. But what's interesting is standards, I know we know this, but standards matter, right? They really matter. My dad, now I'm talking about my entire family, my dad is an astrophysicist, and we laugh, it's not funny, but we laugh. In 1999, there was a mission to Mars, a meteorology mission to Mars, that cost $125 million, and a satellite burned up in orbit. And it burned up in orbit because they were calculating the thrust necessary. They used English as opposed to metric measures. That's standards, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're not quite on that scale. Our budget was a little bit less, although we get cookies. But it matters. Getting things right, being able to talk in a common language, understanding common meaning, that matters. So I'll just use that as a preface as I dig in. I'm going to talk relatively briefly about who was involved in our effort, what we recommended, the process by which we got there, and then I'll set up a lot of provocative and very difficult to answer questions, and I'll pass it to Stuart. We're really, really grateful. I know we've talked about a lot of people and talked about this being a community effort. It really was. You can see these are the people that were involved in our working group. Stuart was one of them. We really owe them a debt of gratitude. They invested a lot of time, a lot of energy, and brought a lot of domain-specific expertise to the project. I owe a special debt of gratitude to Stephanie Haustein, who's my co-chair. Her depth of knowledge on the subject really helped push this along. So what did we do? What's a code of conduct? We arrived at this notion of a code of conduct so that we could provide clear guidelines for the collection, the processing, and the dissemination, and also the reuse of altmetric data from a data quality perspective. And it really takes two different components. There are recommendations for altmetric data providers and aggregators, and also a standard format for reporting on how these recommendations get addressed. Specifically, what does the code of conduct cover? What's the scope of it? And here I'm going to read because it's quite rich and I want to make sure that we're on a common playing field. So the code of conduct aims to improve the quality of altmetric data by increasing the transparency of data provision and aggregation, as well as ensuring replicability and accuracy of online events used to generate altmetrics. And I'll dig into each of these pieces momentarily. It's not concerned with the meaning, the validity, or the interpretation of indicators derived from that data. And for us, we say that altmetric online events include online activities that are, quote, derived from engagement between diverse stakeholders in the research ecosystem and various scholarly outputs. And that actually comes from our colleagues at Working Group A. Note that we make a distinction between altmetric data providers and altmetric data aggregators. Data providers are platforms that function as sources of online events that are used as altmetrics. So you think about Twitter or Mendeley or Facebook or Faculty 1000 Prime, GitHub, SlideShare, Figshare, things like that. Altmetric data aggregators are tools and platforms that take that information, put it together, and offer derived metrics from those altmetric data providers. So this is Plum Analytics, it's Impact Story, it's altmetric.com, PLOS ALM, Crossref, things like that. We are keenly aware, I think all of the working groups are keenly aware, that not all altmetric data providers are part of this insular scholarly communications community. So Twitter and Facebook, think about them as examples. We would very much hope, as the working group, we would very much hope that all altmetric data aggregators, or sorry, that all altmetric data providers we would encourage them to follow this code of conduct. We can't obviously enforce anything. Altmetric data aggregators who really are in this space, that again is the PLOS ALM, the Crossrefs, the impact stories of the world, we would expect them. Again, we have no carrots or sticks right now, but we would expect them to actually adhere to the code of conduct. So the key elements of the code of conduct. We have transparency, replicability, and accuracy are sort of the three key elements. Transparency, in this case, we mean it as the degree to which information and details about disclosed data are clear, they're well documented, and they're open to all users for verification, all users being human and machine. Replicability refers to the degree to which a set of data is consistent across providers and aggregators over time. And accuracy describes the degree of conformity of the collected data with what it actually claims to reflect. Just digging a little bit deeper, and again, I want to just reiterate, for all of our recommendations, we encourage altmetric data providers and we expect altmetric data aggregators to adhere. So with respect to transparency, you can see sort of what we break that down into. But we hope that information is provided about these elements, the elements listed on this slide. And we really view transparency as the degree to which information and details about the provided data are clear, they're well documented, and they're, again, open to all users. That's really important, human and machine. In terms of replicability, these are the expectations. When we talk about replicability, this is what we mean. I'm not going to read it. Hopefully in the back people can see it. We'll make them available, of course, the slides afterwards. We want to ensure, basically the upshot is we want to ensure that the conditions that you see here are met. That again, that data replicability as the degree to which data is consistent across providers and aggregators over time. And then accuracy, the data means what it says it means, that if there are known errors, they're identified and they're corrected, and information about that is made available, and any limitations about the data are made publicly available. And again, this is, some of this seems fairly obvious, but we actually, figuring out the boundaries of all these things and how far we could push or not push, we're subject to some interesting philosophical discussions. By following the code of conduct, this is very small, and I know that it's small. Our hope is that altmetric data providers and aggregators agree to provide a publicly available annual accounting, a report, if you will, a scorecard, documenting in detail how they adhere to the recommendations. And we provide a self-reporting table as part of the project that they can basically download and fill out. In conjunction with the community, when we released the draft of the report for public comment, which was a few months ago, we provided sample reports for a couple different providers and aggregators to serve as a sort of guidepost so people understood in practice what this meant. So that was, we have one for Mendeley, for Twitter, and I think altmetric.com. We have a few others as well. And we worked with those organizations to the extent that we could and the extent that they had publicly available information for that. Now I know Stuart's going to talk a little bit more about what this means in practice and if this is fully stood up, what it will mean to the community, how the information can be used and so forth. Again, there is a draft. Todd provided the URL. I'm sure he'll provide it again. But all this is available. You can take a look. We're still, the public comment period is formally closed. But if you have comments, if you have observations, if you want to just virtually shake your fist at us, our information is available here. So I'm going to give way to Stuart now. He's going to talk about, I think, the mechanics of the code of conduct in the real world, as well as how all this sort of plays out in your lives. So I'll turn it over to him.